Imagine you've held this premium subscription service for your entire.
Like the top tier package.
Exactly, the gold-plated everybody wants it package. And growing up, you were told it was unequivocally the absolute best in the world.
Sure, the gold standard.
Right. But lately, you log in, and every time you try to actually use one of the perks, there's like a hidden fee.
Oh, always a hidden fee.
The maintenance is exhausting, the monthly rate keeps skyrocketing way past inflation, and you're suddenly looking around asking, wait, why am I paying for this again? Does the perk actually justify this exorbitant fee?
Well, the value proposition has totally inverted. I mean, you're paying a premium price for the branding, but the baseline user experience just feels increasingly precarious and, frankly, stressful.
Yeah.
The cost to simply maintain the subscription has outgrown the actual benefits of having it.
And eventually, a lot of those loyal subscribers are just going to hit cancel. Which brings us to the core of today's deep dive. We are unpacking a truly fascinating phenomenon. For the first time since the Great Depression, record numbers of Americans are hitting that cancel button.
They're leaving.
They are packing up and moving abroad. We're looking at hard data backed by the Census Bureau and the Brookings Institution, paired with this massive stack of firsthand accounts from Americans who have relocated to places like Portugal, Spain, Ireland, Germany, Colombia, Thailand.
Take a huge shift.
It really is.
Right.
And our mission today is to decode why this exodus is happening right now and how these expats are fundamentally redefining what we consider the American dream.
And you'll notice, going through these sources, they cross every political line imaginable. The accounts dive into healthcare infrastructure, gun laws, city planning, taxation.
Right, and we should pause here to make something crystal clear for you listening. Our goal here isn't to litigate those politics or, declare a winner in those debates. We aren't taking sides.
Exactly. We are just acting as impartial guides to report on these lived experiences. Because what's fascinating here isn't just that people are leaving, but the psychological breaking points they're describing.
Yeah, it's not just a cheap beach vacation they're after.
No, not at all. We are looking at people seeking an entirely new baseline for human existence.
So let's start with the most immediate friction point they describe, which I'd call the economics of exhaustion. If you look at the traditional 50s, 60s, 70s American dream, the white picket fence, the house, the 2 cars.
Right, the classic ideal.
Multiple sources across our stack explicitly state that this dream is dead. It's been replaced by a desperate, almost primal desire for just 3 things: peace, rest, and financial stability.
And they are completely redefining what financial stability even looks like. Like, one source noted that if financial stability means renting a small apartment abroad instead of owning a sprawling home with a mortgage in the States, then renting is the new dream.
Wow, so renting is the new arrival.
Yes, because home ownership used to be the ultimate marker of arrival. Now, for many of these folks, it's viewed as a trap that just locks you into a cycle of relentless labor just to pay the property taxes and the upkeep.
There's this one phrase from the sources that perfectly captures that feeling of being trapped. The idea that just leaving your house in the U.S. costs $100 minimum.
$100 just to step outside.
Literally.
It's a hyper-monetized existence. I mean, think about the architecture of American daily life. Public spaces where you can simply exist without spending money are just vanishing.
Yeah, you need a car to get almost anywhere.
Which means gas, insurance, maintenance. You meet a friend for a coffee, you're factoring in a tip, parking, inflated food costs. Every time you step out the front door, the meter's running.
The meter is running, and the wages just aren't keeping up.
Yeah.
One expat in Thailand phrased it perfectly. They said, the math stopped mathing.
The math stopped mathing. It's so true.
But the most jarring example of this structural squeeze comes from an American woman who moved to New Zealand. This story blew my mind because it perfectly illustrates the corporate mechanics of that squeeze. So she was working for a massive corporation back in the States. After the Affordable Care Act passed, her employer called her into HR and intentionally cut her hours from around 32 down to under 30 a week.
Just to legally classify her as part-time.
Exactly, stripping away the federal requirement to provide her with health care benefits.
And the irony is she didn't even need their health care, right?
She didn't. She was already covered under her husband's plan. But the company didn't care about her individual reality. They just ran an algorithm, realized they could slash her hours to save money on the balance sheet, and reduce her livelihood overnight.
That's just a numbers game.
Completely. And around that exact same time, she watched a coworker return to her desk just 4 weeks after a C-section.
4 weeks. Returning to a desk 4 weeks after major abdominal surgery is a staggering physical trauma.
Right.
But the structural logic of the system demands it.
Because the company offered zero paid maternity leave. She was eligible for 3 months of unpaid leave under FMLA, but I mean, who can afford 3 months with no income when you just had a baby?
Almost no one.
So she's back at work, bleeding, exhausted, and her 8-week-old baby is going into daycare. This was the exact moment our source said, this is not our future.
A huge wake-up call.
And fast forward to her life in New Zealand. The structural safety net is entirely different. They have 6 months of paid maternity leave, 4 weeks of guaranteed vacation, and 10 sick days. Over 12 years in New Zealand, she had 3 life-threatening emergencies: a miscarriage, a traumatic birth requiring a 5-day hospital stay, and a potential heart attack.
When you look at the mechanics of those specific emergencies in the American system, you are looking at potential bankruptcy.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, even with good insurance, the out-of-pocket deductibles, the out-of-network surprise bills, the sheer administrative burden of fighting with claims adjusters while you are physically recovering, it's a secondary trauma. So what was her financial burden in New Zealand?
$0.
Well, zero. No deductibles, no fighting with insurance, just zero. She walked into the hospital, received life-saving care, and walked out to focus on healing.
That contrast in survival baselines is just crucial. It's not just about the money saved, it's about the psychological freedom of knowing a biological vulnerability won't result in financial ruin.
Right.
But let's look at the other end of the spectrum too, the retirees who are facing a totally different kind of math problem.
Yeah, take the 62-year-old gentleman moving to the mountains of Colombia. He flat out says he could not survive on Social Security in Florida. He'd be struggling every single month to pay rent, buy groceries, and cover his prescriptions. The fixed income against an inflationary privatized system is just a slow-motion disaster for him.
But in Colombia, $500 a month covers absolutely everything for him and his wife.
Now,
Housing, utilities, fresh food, healthcare, transportation, all of it. Plus, he traded the brutal Florida heat for year-round 59 to 74-degree weather. And when he wants the beach, it's a $29 flight.
it's hard to argue with that.
But, okay, I have to push back here for a second, though. Are these folks actually discovering a profound new philosophy on life? Or are they just practicing geographical arbitrage?
Ah, I see what you mean.
Like, aren't they just taking advantage of a strong U.S. dollar, American salaries, and U.S. pensions and dumping them into weaker economies?
Well, geographical arbitrage is absolutely the mechanism allowing this to happen. I mean, without the strength of the U.S. dollar, these moves wouldn't be possible for the vast majority of these people.
Right.
But the financial disparity is merely the tipping point. The sources point out that the math start mathing, sure, but it's the constant low-level hum of financial terror that ultimately breaks them.
The anxiety of it.
Exactly. Wondering if a single medical emergency will bankrupt you, or if you can afford groceries next week, it creates a state of chronic stress. That stress doesn't just stay in your wallet, it floods your nervous system with cortisol.
It gets into your bones.
It really does.
The financial panic physically alters your biology, which brings us to the visceral bodily realities of this exodus, because this part of the research was wild to me. There's a story of a family who moved to Panama. They came back to the U.S. just for a brief visit. Within 3 days of being back on U.S. soil, the mother's migraines returned.
In 3 days.
3 days. Her bloating and gut issues immediately flared back up. And she explicitly states she was eating the exact same diet she had in Panama.
She observed that everything around her in the U.S. felt incredibly rushed. Even when she was intentionally trying to take her time, the ambient environment was just vibrating with hurry.
Yeah, buzzing.
This highlights the gut-brain axis perfectly. A hyper-individualistic, competitive environment triggers a constant fight-or-flight response.
Yeah.
Your digestion slows down, your muscles tense up, you are physically bracing for impact, like all the time.
And the ambient stress is compounded by the immediate return of the financial drain. She spent more on absolute essentials, just gas and groceries, in 1 week visiting the States than her family spends in an entire month in Panama.
That's staggering.
She even noted this reality check at the nail salon. A set of nails cost her $25 to $30 more in the U.S. than the exact same service in Panama. It's like the environment itself, the combination of speed, cost, and pressure, is literally making people physically ill.
And we see a dramatic reversal of that sickness in the story of the 30-year-old former factory worker from Bowling Green, Kentucky. His story is a textbook case study in how environments dictate biological outcomes.
Right. So at 29, he's working 12-hour factory shifts. He weighs 280 pounds, and he's on 6 different medications for anxiety, panic attacks, hypertension, and asthma.
He is essentially treating the symptoms of his toxic environment with a pharmacy of pills.
Exactly. He hates everything about his daily cycle of exhaustion. So he builds a 6-month escape plan. He saves every penny, cashes out a tiny 401k of just a couple $1,000s, sells everything, and buys a one-way ticket to Phuket, Thailand.
And keep in mind, this is someone with no corporate experience, no degree, having previously been a bartender and a bagger at a grocery store.
Yeah.
He didn't have a massive safety net to fall back on.
No safety net at all. And within a few years in Thailand, he builds a multiple 6-figure digital business. He completely transforms his health, gets off all 6 medications, drops the weight, and points out that none of it would have happened if he hadn't changed his environment.
Environment is everything.
Thailand gave him the space, the pace, and the affordability to actually heal his nervous system before trying to build a business.
He removed the biological blockades, and we see another angle of this environmental pressure with the mother who is taking her toddler to India.
Oh, yeah. She's taking extreme measures.
Yeah.
She is leaving her husband behind in the U.S. to finish building their house until 2027, just to get herself and her son out of the American ecosystem.
That is a massive decision.
It is. She described feeling crushed by the atomized, isolated nature of American suburban life. She lacked a support system. She also specifically mentioned feeling intense anxiety about being surrounded by what she counted as 250 5G towers near her home.
Right. And we aren't here to debate the science of radio frequencies.
No.
What matters is her profound sense of invisible ambient dread.
The environment felt hostile to her survival. In India, she says she feels free and glowing, largely because she finally experienced the communal maternal support structure that the U.S. nuclear family model just actively dismantles.
Which brings us to perhaps the most stark description in the entire source stack. One individual analyzed all of this and described the United States not as a country anymore, but as an abomination of city planning and a functional economic zone.
A functional economic zone.
A functional economic zone that you are meant to contribute to until your life ends. That line hit me like a ton of bricks. It's a brutal assessment, but let's look at the architecture of it. A functional economic zone is a landscape designed purely for extraction and output, rather than human flourishing.
Yeah.
The sprawling suburbs, disconnected from commercial centers, forced car ownership. The tying of healthcare to employment forces continuous labor. You are a unit of economic energy. You're allowed a vacation every year or two just to catch your breath before returning to the machine to generate more GDP.
It makes me think of this analogy. Living in this high-stress environment is like wearing an ill-fitting, incredibly scratchy suit.
Okay, I like that.
You wear it every day to work because everyone else is wearing one, and over decades, you kind of just get used to the chiefing. You think, well, this is just what being an adult feels like. Life is supposed to hurt a little.
Right, you normalize it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not until you finally take the suit off, or in this case, leave the country, that you look down and realize your skin is red and raw. And you realize how much chronic pain you are actually in without even noticing.
The normalization of that pain is exactly what Lydia describes. She's the yoga instructor who was working 3 jobs in the U.S., grinding constantly but feeling this undeniable hollow void. She quit her jobs, sold her belongings, and moved to India.
She said she was running the exact American playbook we are all taught. Hustle for the jobs, maintain the relationships, try to get the mortgage, and she was still just scraping by emotionally and financially.
Her core insight really decodes the psychological exodus. She realized she had to leave her environment to stop, in her words, shrinking herself because of the unconscious roles she played for the people and the systems in her life.
Shrinking herself.
Yeah. What we commonly diagnose as job burnout is often mislabeled. It's actually the sheer exhaustion of suppressing your true self, your natural pace, and your biological needs just to survive the demands of that functional economic zone.
So you think you're burned out on answering emails, but you're actually burned out from carrying the heavy armor you have to wear every day just to exist in that zone. But, taking off that scratchy suit relieves the pain, only to introduce a new problem. You're also taking off the pockets.
Right.
When you leave the American economic engine, you're leaving behind massive conveniences and comforts. You can't have it all. And this forces a complete redefinition of what freedom actually means.
The reality of the trade-offs is where the romanticism of moving abroad meets the pavement. Moving abroad is not stepping into a flawless utopia. It requires abandoning very specific American privileges.
Let's go back to the expat who visited from Panama. She was very honest about what she lost. She missed the freedom of owning a personal vehicle. In Panama, she relies entirely on walking or waiting for Ubers.
Yeah, that's a big shift.
Back in the US, she loved the autonomy of just rolling out of bed, getting in her car, and driving wherever she wanted.
She also highlighted a distinctly cultural freedom that really doesn't translate abroad.
Well, she's from the American South, and she deeply missed the freedom of waking up on her in-laws' sprawling property and shooting guns right there in the backyard for recreation without needing a formal range or government permission.
Right.
But she also noted a really fascinating paradox regarding those same firearms.
This paradox reveals two entirely competing definitions of freedom.
She said she feels perfectly safe walking down the street at night in Panama, completely unarmed. The thought of danger doesn't even cross her mind. But when she returned to the U.S., sitting in her car in the parking lot outside a Walmart, she felt a distinct, visceral need to carry her firearm into the store.
Wow.
So she misses the American freedom to shoot recreationally on her own property, but she deeply appreciates the Panamanian freedom from feeling like she needs a deadly weapon just to buy milk safely.
Freedom to act versus freedom from fire.
Yeah.
And we see another interpretation of freedom with the expat living in Madrid, which challenges the American concept of time and ambition.
This one sounds like a dream, but it requires a massive ego death for an American. They work 16 hours a week.
16 hours.
Yeah. They make about €1,000 a month, which they admit is poverty-level wages in the U.S. But in Spain, it affords them a nice apartment in the city center. They spend €20 a week on food, €30 a month on electricity.
And no car is needed because of the world-class public transit. The 40-hour work week, which acts as a control mechanism in the U.S., is completely dismantled here.
Totally.
But the cultural trade-off is accepting a drastically slower pace of life.
They rave about the 3-hour afternoon siesta culture, people taking time to nap or go to coffee shops or just sit in a plaza in the middle of a Tuesday. They literally said the American mind cannot fathom just taking time to enjoy life rather than working constantly to accumulate more things.
It's so true. In the U.S., if you have free time, you're expected to monetize it, start a side hustle.
Right.
In Madrid, free time is just time.
But the expat living in Dublin throws some necessary cold water on the pure romanticism of this, because leaving the functional economic zone requires immense logistical effort.
Right, it's not a vacation.
The Dublin expat says a global move is a massive, highly bureaucratic deal. You have to research your tax obligations to both countries. Real estate is incredibly expensive and scarce in Dublin, mirroring a lot of U.S. cities. You have to figure out how entirely foreign school systems work if you have kids.
There's a lot of friction.
It's not just packing a bag, snapping your fingers, and waking up in a stress-free paradise. You are trading one set of problems for a completely different set of problems.
Which leads to the most important caveat of this entire movement, highlighted perfectly by the MBA graduate who was starting a business in Brazil with her father.
She was incredibly transparent. She considers herself highly patriotic, and she is very thankful for the U.S. education and opportunities she had. But she openly admits that her ability to take this massive, risky leap moving to a developing economy to start a business is entirely buffered by the comfort of knowing she can always come back.
The irony is heavy here.
It is.
The ultimate enabler of this new, peaceful dream is actually the privilege of holding a U.S. passport and having access to American capital. They aren't burning their ships and abandoning the safety of the U.S. entirely. They are keeping the American empire in their back pocket as an insurance policy while they explore a world that offers a different currency.
So if we look at all these stories, from the beaches of Thailand to the mountains of Colombia to the plazas of Madrid, what definition of freedom are these people actually prioritizing?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because it seems to me like the traditional American freedom of hyperconvenience, of having Amazon deliver literally anything to your door in 2 hours, of accumulating massive houses and 2 SUVs, that definition of freedom is being directly traded for the freedom of time and mental bandwidth.
It goes back to the Dublin expat's core question. To anyone considering this kind of radical change, what freedom do you want to live in?
What freedom do you want to live in?
You can have the freedom of endless consumer choice and geographical space in the U.S., or you can have the freedom of a slower nervous system, guaranteed health care, and communal support abroad. But you cannot have both simultaneously.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? to wrap up this journey, it's clear that this mass exodus isn't just about escaping high rent or avoiding a $100 trip to the grocery store or even seeking out a cheaper set of acrylic nails.
No, it goes much deeper.
It is a profound search for mind-body alignment. It's the realization that changing your internal environment, your chronic stress, your anxiety, your burnout, often strictly requires changing your external environment first. You cannot heal in the exact same environment that made you sick.
We'd ask you to evaluate your own daily routine through this lens. Think about Lydia's concept of shrinking yourself. Are you putting on heavy emotional armor just to get out of your car and walk into work in the morning? What does your personal functional economic zone look like?
And what would happen if you just stopped shrinking yourself to fit into it? It's a terrifying question because the answers might require dismantling the life you've built.
It's the scariest question you could ask, but potentially the most liberating.
And before we go, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own. It's kind of the elephant in the room regarding this entire data set.
Let's hear it.
If the United States is currently experiencing a mass exodus of its most risk-taking, adventurous, and entrepreneurial citizens, the people willing to sell everything, figure out foreign tax laws, and move to Thailand or start a business in Brazil, these are the exact types of people who traditionally built the American economy.
The innovator.
Exactly. So what happens to the cultural and economic engine of America over the next decade? Are we witnessing the beginning of an unprecedented, self-inflicted brain drain?
Well, if a platform keeps losing its most dynamic, highly educated, and capable members because the user experience is too painful, the platform eventually stagnates.
Are we just watching a bunch of people cancel their subscriptions, or are we watching the foundational code of the platform itself start to fail? Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. Keep asking the big questions, keep examining the systems you live in, and maybe take a second today to check if that suit you're wearing is a little too scratchy. We'll catch you next time.